This episode of the Rural Roots Canada podcast is brought to you by Kubota. When hay season hits, every hour in the field counts, and Kubota hay tools are built to make the most of them. With mowers, tedders, rakes, balers, wrappers, mergers, and more, Kubota has the equipment to keep your operation moving. Head to Kubota.ca and click Agriculture to explore the full lineup. Welcome to the Rural Roots Canada podcast. I'm Tim Parent, joined by Mr. Craig Lester. And Craig, welcome back. You're only just getting back today from Brazil. Tell everyone about that, your latest journey, agricultural journey that you went on.
Yeah, once again, so fortunate to be able to travel to another part of the world and see agricultural practices and food production up close and personal in regards to that, and interact with, obviously, the farmers and journalists and communicators from around the world. It's quite an honor to be able to do that, and it was just an incredible experience to be able to experience that. So, and now we're back, sort of thing. And as you said, I got off the plane around 10 o'clock this morning here in Calgary, and just adjusting, maybe running off a little bit of adrenaline at this point. I do sleep pretty well on planes, but anyone who travels a lot on planes can tell you, sort of thing, you can feel a bit of jet lag from time to time, sort of thing. But it's not too bad. Obviously, it was only 3 hours ahead of where we were here, sort of thing, in terms of time zones, so not too much of an adjustment.
Well, you had to adjust to the weather, because we had a nice blast of winter weather here in North Calgary. And you can, obviously, if you want to see our weather forecasts, ruralrootscanada.com, meteorologist David Spence, twice a week he has forecasts up on our website. And I think this one kind of came out of the blue, but we survived it. It's Calgary, it's March. Can't expect miracles, right? And but a very different temperature change, I'm sure, for you coming from Rio to Calgary.
Yeah, so when I was out in the fields out near Sao Carlos in Sao Paulo State in Brazil, it was plus 30. It felt like plus 35, maybe plus 40 some days. It was hot, and it made for a bit of an adjustment coming from Calgary here. Obviously, it was also snowing the day I flew out, which was mid-March. So obviously a welcome change in that regard, sort of thing. But when you get out there and you start interviewing farmers and listening to their stories, and the sun's beating down on you, sort of thing, you're thankful that you're in, that it's warm, but at the same time you're like, wow, this has got there's a bit of heat here, sort of thing. So you're making sure that you got some sunscreen on, and you're drinking plenty of water, sort of thing. But it was quite the trip, honestly. I think it was really awesome to be able to hear the other side of the story when it comes to Brazil. Some very interesting facts, and to see firsthand. I mean, as many of our listeners probably know, is that Brazil is a global powerhouse when it comes to agricultural exports. Now, obviously, this has not always been the case, but I didn't realize just how short of a turnaround that they've seen in that regard. So, we're talking 50 years ago, when the country was barely on the map when it came to exports, when it talked to global exports. And in just 50 years, one lifetime, they have gone from that status to a global power when it comes to exporting agricultural products. Now, one thing that they have going for them is that they can produce up to 3 different crops during the course of the year based on the weather, as we were just discussing. They don't have the rail infrastructure that we have here in Canada, and they have some other logistical issues in regards to that. But honestly, they've just found ways to get their products to market. One of the fascinating things that I learned in regards to some of the regulations, honestly, I wasn't aware of any of the regulations that they have in Brazil in regards to producing food, but one of the things in regards to how they grow foods and the regulations there is that depending on where you are in the country, which biome that you are on, there's a number of different biomes across the country, depends on how much land you can turn into crop or livestock production. So, for example, if you're up in the Amazon biome, 80% of your farmland has to be in natural vegetation. Now, down in Sao Paulo, where we were, sort of thing, it was around 20%, I believe, and there's a lot of states where they have lower things. But it was just fascinating to see how they are working to protect these biomes and the natural vegetation that are going in around them, sort of thing. And I mean, obviously, we hear different narratives on the environmental side, sort of thing, in regards that are more negative. But it was very interesting to hear some of the things that they're taking seriously at that level, right in the country itself. I think the other thing that was really fascinating was learning a lot about their research. Obviously, here in Canada, we've talked a lot in regards to the cuts to the government funding in regards to research. A lot of the research that's done in Brazil is all private. There's not a lot of government funding in regards to their research at all. We went to the Sugarcane Technology Center in the São Carlos area, and there was no government funding whatsoever in regards to it. And all of it was built on a profit model that has worked a business model that has worked very well for them in regards to building up a profit and then funding it back into research that was developing higher quality and higher yields for their sugarcane. They were looking at increasing production quite a bit around that, and also not just for food purposes, but also for ethanol, for fuel. And so it was very interesting to be able to see that. We visited a soy farm where two farmers, they had both sisters, had taken over from their dad, and instead of buying more land, which the father wanted them to see, they took a look at their business model and actually realized that diversification was a much quicker return. So they built a massive storage facility on part of their land to handle soy, and they now have 100 customers that they're serving in their area to store soy. It's just massive. They said the one thing that they regret is that they didn't make it bigger. That's how much of a need there was for storage, and I mean, That's obviously something that we can that every farmers can relate to in every country, because I think there's a storage shortage no matter where you are, sort of thing in that regard. So that was very fascinating. Obviously, you talk about they have cooperatives down there just like we have here in Canada, and there's around sugarcane. We went to a fresh cut flower business that started out pretty small and now have expanded into a massive greenhouse operation in regards to shipping flowers everywhere. And some of the other research facilities that we have seen just around improving lots of different things. One of the research facilities, Spark Bio, that we visited was focused in on beneficial insects, obviously. So instead of spraying chemicals, they use beneficial insects to go in and attack other insects that are causing problems with crops. Obviously, there is some research being done on that in Canada here, and it was just interesting to see what the work that they were doing at Spark Bio down in Brazil on that fact. And I think the other takeaway was just seeing how quickly this agricultural journalists organization is growing. Obviously, it's only been a couple of years since they decided to come together and form a guild within the International Federation of Agricultural Journalists, and the strides that they've taken in that time to build this was just absolutely fantastic to see that. So,
well, that's very cool. I mean, that's an incredible journey, and you've been, like you said, you are fortunate. You've been able to learn a lot about agricultural practices around the world on your trips with the IFAJ, and even just on your own as well. And I think, Craig, I don't think you'll disagree with me on this. One thing we like to do here at Rural Roots Canada is teach people, and particularly about agriculture. And this March is Canadian Agriculture Literacy Month. It's celebrating 15 years of working to connect young Canadians with the food system that feeds them and feeds you and feeds me. It's a national initiative. It's run by Agriculture in the Classroom Canada, and it reaches students from kindergarten to grade 12 all across the country. And since it launched, the program has delivered more than 1 million student experiences in over 18,500 classrooms, and with close to 175,000 expected this year alone. Some incredible numbers there. And Rural Roots Canada reporter Olivia Taylor has a little more on this being Canadian Agriculture Literacy Month.
I'm Olivia Taylor for Rural Roots Canada. This March marks 15 years of Canadian Agriculture Literacy Month, a national initiative aiming to expose youth to agriculture.
Well, we're noticing a growing divide in terms of youth understanding where their food comes from, how it's looked after, how it's processed, who's involved in the process, from basically the earth to the plate.
That's Mercedes Unwin, Manager of Educational Programs at Agriculture in the Classroom Canada. In Alberta, Agriculture for Life runs classroom workshops and resources tailored specifically to the province's industry.
The most rewarding part is just seeing a student or even a teacher light up with a new understanding of how our industry works.
The program reaches students from kindergarten through grade 12, with curriculum link resources available in English and French at no cost. I'm Olivia Taylor for Rural Roots Canada.
And that is our RC's Olivia Taylor talking about Canadian Agriculture Literacy Month, celebrating 15 years working to connect young Canadians with the food system.
If you make hay, you know what's really in charge, the weather. So when you have a good window, it's go time, and you need equipment that helps you move fast, stay consistent, and avoid downtime. This episode is sponsored by Kubota Canada Hay Tools. From disc mowers and conditioners to tedders, rakes, mergers, round balers, wrappers, and more, it's a lineup built around the stuff that pays you back in season. That means clean cutting, terrain adaptability, and durability to go the distance. And because reliability isn't optional, Kubota backs it up with Canadian commitment. More than 50 years in Canada, plus a dealer network that's locally owned and ready to help when the season doesn't wait. That kind of dealer support means you're never far from people who understand the unique conditions your operation faces. And for extra peace of mind, all Kubota hay tools are backed by a 2-year factory warranty. Kubota Canada. Find the link in the show notes for more.
And Craig, of course, being Agriculture Literacy Month here in Canada, we had a chance to sit down this week with Chris Ennis. He is the Agricultural Field Product Specialist with Kubota Canada. And specifically, we were talking about pasture and field preparation as we get into the seeding season and we get ready for the season ahead. And we talked about some of the things you need to know, some of the tools that you should be using to help in that field prep. And it was an in-depth conversation with Chris, and I was excited to get some of that information from him. So here's my interview with Chris Ennis from Kubota Canada. Chris, my first question for you is, we know how critical spring hay prep is. Walk us through the haymaking workflow from field prep through baling, and where does Kubota's equipment fit into that process?
So just as we'll start easy and we can break off with some of these sub-questions here, but essentially, at the very start, we're looking at field preparation. We're going to try to start and get in these fields as soon as we can, and with that, we have the opportunity to get that field ready for the season to ensure that we've got a nice even crop all the way through. So essentially, first things first, make sure the field prep is good. Using tools like our harrows, power harrows, depending on the need and the shape of the crop that we have there from the previous year, or if we're looking to get into a new crop. At that, nutrient management, everything from nitrogen to limes to control pH, we can look at that. And then once we know that we have that good crop, we're ready to go, we'll just sit back for a few weeks, let it grow, then we'll start our whole process of the hay production, which would include everything from the mowing, tedding, depending on our moisture levels, raking, and then last but not least, either baling or chopping for some forage crops.
What are some of the biggest mistakes hay farmers make during spring prep? Like, how does having the right equipment prevent costly problems down the line?
Couple things that would come to mind right off hop would be in field prep if we were to neglect some of that prep, and then we're going to be leaving those ruts. We're going to be leaving some of that winter kill, livestock damage. Those are all things that we're going to try to mitigate early. If we don't see those repaired, fixed, replaced, we're going to be running into things, even with ruts, mole holes. I don't want to be dragging my disc bind through that. We know the cost of knives, we know the cost of equipment. To keep that in there, and on top of that, then we start looking into getting higher ash contents in our feed and forage. That early season prep really sets the base for the quality of feed that we're going to look to get out of it later on in the year. And even with that can help us determine how many cuts we're going to get out of it. Whether, depending, obviously, that's probably one of the biggest factors. In hay production, we always hope for the best, and as long as we put that work in at the front end, we will certainly get it out in the back end.
Let's start with pasture and field prep. What are the critical first steps for a farmer preparing a hayfield or pasture in the spring?
I think the first I'd be out looking at when I get into my fields is either, any winter kill. Do we have any that surface damage from the frost, from livestock if they've been out grazing early season? Other things could include compaction and drainage issues, which I would like to see that looked after, or at least noted in the fall. The fall is the best time where you're going to notice, with those fall rains, we've taken that crop off, and now we can see where that water is pooling. Poor drainage we can mitigate and get on that either first thing in the spring or in the fall, so we don't have to worry about it in the spring. Another thing I would look at is any sort of residue if we're growing any sort of different crop across these fields, or anything, even heavy thatch buildup. If we're sitting on a 3 or 4 year pasture, all those cuttings and clippings all settle down, and we have that heavy thatch. That thatch will hold moisture if we can get the moisture in there, but it also won't allow nutrients in as easily. So it's just something that we can mitigate by either harrows, doing some soil conditioning, just with a light cut with a disc harrow, something just to open that up, allow the nutrients in, allow the air to get back in there to start that breakdown of the thatch.
Chris, can you explain the difference between what a harrow does versus a power harrow? Like, when would you use each one?
Okay, so the traditional harrow, and this is something, especially as a kid, we used to start that would be the first thing that you would do. It's just a little finger harrow. What that's going to do, it's a very passive tool. If we don't have heavy ruts, if we don't have any large amounts of soil that need to be moved, the traditional harrow, for instance, we've got our CT 8300. We can go from 18 to 60 feet with these. It's for light soil work, just for scratching the top, breaking up that light residue, manure spread. Again, if we had the livestock out on the field, let's get that evened out and spread across. And just aeration. Again, it may be just enough just to break that thatch up to allow those nutrients in there. So again, a very passive tool is a typical harrow. If we start looking into if we want to change, say if we want to change crops, or if we have heavy rutting, heavy wash-offs from rain, the power harrow is a much better choice. It's a PTO-driven implement. It works with soil. It works with rotating tines, and it really breaks that soil up, breaks down those clogs, and we'll put it back to a seed bed ready field for replanting. Power harrows work great to have that perfect seed bed. They're a bit more time consuming than the harrow, as we have to move that much more dirt. But if our smallest is 8 foot, our largest is upwards of 20 feet. You cover a lot of ground with a 20 foot. You do need the horsepower to drive it, but essentially it will leave a seed bed, a fine seed bed ready to go. No clods, just a nice, ready to plant right behind it.
Can you walk us through Kubota's lineup of spreaders and what farmers are gravitating towards?
Yeah, for sure. We're seeing a lot more farmers purchasing their own spreaders. We all used to use those spreader buggies from our suppliers. They're good. They have their downfalls of they're not that accurate. They're normally not well maintained. You are paying for the rental of it in most cases. So we're seeing a lot of them driven to spreader lineups, such as like our disc spreaders. They're very, very precise. If we're looking at the price of urea right now, say for nitrogen, it's gone up 12% in the last month alone. We need to be very frugal with how we want to manage that. With the DSX spreaders and DSM spreaders that we have, we're able to do prescription mapping to just put that nutrient where we need it and as much as we need it. Different rates will depend on how we've had the soil tested. And again, that could be something that comes up in that pre-season check. of having the soil tested and looking to see where we need to spread that lime with these disc spreaders, where we need to spread that urea just to make sure that we have an even crop all the way through the field. With the spreading widths now, side edge, we keep these pretty tight, and again, with the cost of this, sustainably, we need to be very cautious about where we're putting it. So, and then we'll see even some of the smaller operators operating with the pendulum spreaders, anywhere from 220 liters up to 750 liters we offer. Again, allows for that smaller horsepower tractor to be able to get the same work done, just with a smaller unit as well.
So now I'm going to ask you to walk through Kubota's disc mower conditioner offerings, what models are gaining traction in Canadian operations and why.
Okay, so this is, we've got a huge offering of everything from just straight disc mowers with no conditioning to our DMC series. Obviously with those conditioning, whether it be tine, rubber roller, Chevron, which we're all pretty much used to, and now we offer a steel roller as well. Within what's gaining traction in Canada, it really depends on the demographic. Essentially, today I'm out in the East Coast of Canada, and out here we see a lot of guys that are wanting to use flails, the tine conditioner. That being said, there is pros and cons to both. And depending on who you are and what you're used to, if we're doing a young hardy crop, we can get away with using the tined machines. And tined, it's not going to knock as much as that foliage off. We don't have to worry about it getting beaten up too much. Or if we are worried on a bit of an older crop, we can use those rollers, so we'll get that crimping action to help our dry down times, without losing as much of that foliage in that specific crop. Again, very specific to the crop, very specific to the location throughout Canada. Because of that huge variety of wants and needs, we offer everything from a 9-foot mower conditioner all the way up to our butterflies, which essentially we'll be cutting a 33.5-inch swath. Again, the larger we go, higher horsepower requirements are a big thing. We do see a lot of larger producers going with the butterfly mowers, a front mount. Say we'll put a 10.5 foot on the front, and then our DMC 63-100 series on the back, and that's cutting a big chunk of crop. If we're going to drive across it, let's get down as much as we can to save on those fuel costs and time that we're spent out on that field as well. So even within those graphics as well, we have our traditional left-hand pull, just our side pull machines, and then our center pull, which essentially we can just kind of turn and burn, turn on our headlands, and then just come straight back across it. So wide variety to match everything that we can get at.
Yeah, very much so. Chris, what sets Kubota's balers apart from competitors? Is it horsepower? Is it compatibility, durability, or something about the design?
So with our balers, this is probably my favorite product that I'm involved with out of all of them. Kubota, I'm going to have to say what sets us apart from competition is our density system, among many others. But our 3D density system allows us to make 3 different core adjustments for density throughout one bale. So easy numbers, if we had a 4-foot bale, I can make that bale core a 500-pound pressure, and we can move it to the center and to the outsides. That really tailors our baler to the end user. As much as if we know we're going to run a single spear, we can loosen that core up. We're not loosen it up enough that we can get that spear in without dragging on the ground, risking net wrap, tearing, and everything else. And that's all done from, it's a full ISO baler. These are BV 5600s. And they're great. The high capacity pickups, we've got 2 with the BV 5160, which is our 4-foot baler. We offer 2 supercut options, so 2 chop options. If we know if we're going to be putting it in a TMR, we're going to want to chop it down. So it's a matter, do we chop it down while we're cutting it, or do we have some more time in the TMR? If we're putting it through that, we might as well run those knives up and get it knocked down as small as we can, and that makes for a very, very dense bale. If we don't have the need or want to chop, we have the power feed rotor intake, which essentially uses 14 fingers to force from the crop into the bale chamber to get that for the instant starting. We don't see that cord jumping around in the bale chamber. It comes out with perfectly even bales of unchopped. Another thing that really stands out with those balers is our drop floor system. We know it happens. We try not to make it happen, but we can get slugs caught, from the raking process, from merger processes, anything like that. And if that slug does by chance get stuck in the bale chamber, our drop parallelogram floor actually drops and moves out of the way, and it'll just pass the slug right through. Because if anybody's unplugged one of these, they don't happen on a nice cool day. It happens on the hottest, dustiest day that we're out there pulling it out. So
right.
if we can stop that by not even getting out of the tractor, I'm all for it.
Chris, new to Kubota's hay tool line are the power mergers. How do these expedite the haymaking process, and what advantages do they have over, say, a conventional hay rake?
So this is a very, very exciting new piece for us is the series. As of right now, we're carrying them from our 3.8 front mount to a rear mounted. We go center delivery or side delivery up to 11 meters. They don't require a lot of horsepower, but they move a pile of hay. With our 11 meter, we're taking up about a 30-foot swath and making it into one larger pile. Our balers, we're getting higher capacity balers, we're getting higher capacity harvesters if we're chopping. We need to be able to feed those machines. If we can stop 4 or 5 runs down that field with one solid run, we're saving fuel, we're saving compaction, we're saving tram line introduction from driving back and forth on it. So with these mergers, it takes that 33, we'll use a 33 foot and piles it in a fluffy, consistent windrow, which allows for very well ventilated drying process, and again makes it so that we're making one pass as opposed to 3 passes down these fields to get much more crop in the bunk or in the bales than driving back and forth.
Chris, some great information here and some great products you're telling us all about. Spring prep is here. Anything else that you want to add at this point and you let our audience know about?
I think, and I was saying just before, I'm at a dealer here in the East Coast, that it's nice to see, we talk about this early prep of fields and everything else, but there's also the early prep of our equipment. If we're not buying that equipment brand new, or even if we are buying that equipment brand new, I think the first step is to be ready for that season. Let's get our balers in, let's get our disc binds in to have a once over, make sure they're good to go, they're set up. That way when you get in that field, you know that you're going to be getting as much uptime as you can. Again, with all the rising input costs, we need our return on investment to be as close as we can. So really, let's get in early. Let's see our dealers. Any of our Kubota dealers are happy to, especially this time of year. We're starting to see the snow coming off the roads. Now is a good time to get them in and get them ready before the season.
Chris, again, thanks so much for the time. Appreciate all this information today.
Thanks for having me.
And that was Chris Ennis with Kubota Canada. He is their agricultural field product specialist, and having an in-depth conversation there with Chris about some of the tools and information you need to prep your field ahead of the growing season. Craig, I think that pretty much wraps up our time for today. Welcome back again to Canada, and we're glad to have you back on the RRC front. And we got a busy few months ahead for sure.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it, Tim. A bit rest, but at the same time, also a lot of adventure and learning. So it was all good. And be sure to tune into ruralrootscanada.com for no shortage of coverage from my trip to Brazil there. As well, we have a bit of news to share as well. Sort of thing is that anyone, farmers and anybody interested in agriculture, our programming has been expanded to 13 stations, and that includes 2 radio stations in Grand Prairie, and that includes 104 The Goat and 90.4 Sun FM in Grand Prairie. That the feature plays at 6:50 a.m. on both stations. So we are really excited to be joining Grand Prairie, and hold your hat. There is more news coming at the beginning of April, but we're gonna you'll have to tune in again in I think 2 weeks to find out that great news. So
that's a great tease. That's what we call in radio a nice little tease to keep you interested about what's coming on. And it's a lot of great news, and that's fantastic. So join us back here in a couple of weeks, and we will let you know what that is all about. Thanks again to Kubota for sponsoring this episode. Choosing the right equipment for your hay operation is a big decision, so Kubota's dealer network is there to help you get it right. Whether you're looking at mowers, balers, or a complete hay tool setup, your local Kubota dealer can walk you through the options. Head to Kubota.ca and click Find a Dealer to connect with an expert near you. For Craig Lester, I'm Tim Parent. Thanks for listening.